Welcome to the broadcast and welcome to the Fruit Basket, my dear old fruits, basketeers of the kingdom and beyond, as we gather together in mourning to celebrate the life of a beloved member of the royal family who has been a credit to this nation and a credit to the royal family and has died. Catherine, Duchess of Kent, departed this earthly realm last night in the comfort of Kensington Palace at the age of 92. She was a ripe old fruit in the season of winter. It is with deep sorrow that Buckingham Palace announces the death of Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Kent. Her Royal Highness passed away peacefully last night at Kensington Palace, surrounded by her family. The King and Queen and all members of the royal family join the Duke of Kent, his children and grandchildren, in mourning their loss and remembering fondly the Duchess's lifelong devotion to all the organisations with which she was associated, her passion for music and her empathy for young people. The King is at Balmoral at this present time, but he was informed immediately of the Duchess of Kent's death. Kate Kent is hugely admired for her devotion to charity work, to young people, and to music, the love of music, the sound of music. Katie Kent surrendered her royal duties with the support of the late Queen in 2002 to genuinely pursue a life away from the limelight and the lens, in comparison to other so-called duchesses or duchessi. Genuinely, you see how it can be done in total privacy, not some sort of vulgar privacy tour, as other duke and duchesses are wont to pursue. She did it with aplomb, with class, with elegance, and with grace. In a way it was, although I've never seen the movie Gangster's Paradise with Michelle Pfeiffer, it was something along those lines with Catherine Kent, because she taught music in a primary school after she left royal duty. A primary school in Hull, not known for being one of the most salubrious areas of the kingdom, and she did it anonymously, under the name Mrs. Kent, or just plain Catherine. No airs and graces. A Yorkshire lass she was. A rose of Yorkshire, born Catherine Lucy Mary Worsley. To aristocracy, in fact. Her father, Sir William, was the 4th Baronet and Lord Lieutenant of the North Riding of Yorkshire, and Catherine converted to Catholicism in 1992. Of course, it was back in the 60s, I believe 1961, when she married the late Queen's cousin, Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, who is now her widower at the age of 89. And it was about a year ago, I think it was last October, when I remember seeing her for one of the final times at least, in chair, as her husband was being serenaded for his birthday. She issued 3 children. In fact, I'll correct myself, 4, but little Patrick sadly died, stillborn. She issued George Windsor, Earl of St Andrews, Lady Helen Taylor, and Lord Nicholas Windsor, beloved children. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. And she was raised at Hovingham Hall in North Yorkshire, which is the ancestral family seat. The Worsleys occupied it since the 16th century. When she delivered a stillborn child, as I say, the bairn was called Patrick, she went into severe depression, as one can understand. I've had not a close friend, but an acquaintance with whom I have much affection for, who suffered the same misfortune, and I can understand how Catherine Kent, or any of you that might have suffered the same, went into a severe depression. all those decades ago, which affected her for the rest of her life. She was hospitalised with that depression and anxiety at the time, and has said that it had a devastating effect on the rest of her life, which anybody can understand. The effects are profound for such a tragedy. But that didn't stop her from having a productive and fruitful life, full of love. Her favourite song was by Dido. Thank you. She also enjoyed rap music very much. She was a great fan of Eminem and Ice Cube. Yeah. She was a surprising royal in many ways that bucked the trend decades before those that came along afterwards and think that they are so edgy ever did. But she did it quietly. She didn't need the applause. She didn't need plaudits. She didn't need to be hailed as edgy and modern and with it and cool and down with the zeitgeist. She just did it and was it. Authenticity. She didn't need to be it or act it or display it. She was it. And that is why we will enter into a mourning period of 7 days. Notice of her death, I believe, has now been displayed on the gates at Buckingham Palace, and flags are to be flown at half-mast, and you will be seeing a royal funeral of sorts emerging. Dearly beloved, never forgotten, the Duchess of Kent, Catherine. And another Catherine, this time, instead of a K, with a C, made an appearance at the Natural History Museum, as I told you she would. She was wearing Ralph Lauren, a tweed blazer with pear-drop ear gems in blue topaz to the lobes. She wore suede ballerina loafers, and she has been a patron of the Natural History Museum for 12 years thence. She was there to look over, amongst other things, the newly transformed gardens, and she spent a lot of time with the children, and there was the most delicious footage of her being caught in a downpour of torrential rain that just fell out of the sky like diamonds, and oh, it looked such fun, enormous fun, to get so drenched under umbrella with the children. What a way to hang out with the future king and queen, don't you think? Of course, William looked charming too. His beard wasn't too unkempt on this occasion. They do resemble a pair of geography teachers, though, instead of prince and princesses, but that's a personal preference. And it appears that Goldilocks has emerged. Although, of course, really, she's not that blonde. It just comes over that way in certain light, certain photographs. She's still, I would say, a treacly kind of brunette, but not the chestnut, the liquid chestnut brunette look that we've all come to know and love. But yeah, the full look appears to have been unveiled, and she's come in for a lot of criticism. Surprise, surprise, this is the world of the internet and social media. So I will hold forth on all of that and present a couple of your comments. Diane Lee said, I saw a photo of Catherine today, and the hair colour and length are both very aging on her. She Chalker, or Cheek Chalker, says Catherine's hair was beautifully styled and the colour was well done, but the shade does not suit her. It might be a fun change for summer, but it doesn't really work. All kinds of opinions have been coming in. I have noticed the general consensus, even from great admirers and fans of Catherine, seemed to chime with what I said in the last broadcast when we'd seen a glimpse of it, which is that we're not that keen. It doesn't do that much for her. I will frame this in context, but before I do that I will read the words of Sam McKnight, who was the personal hairstylist to the late Princess of Wales. Her predecessor before Camilla was Princess of Wales, Diana. They were joined at the hip, they're very close, until Diana's death, so he has that fondness and association for the family and for the line of Princesses of Wales, and he said, I am shocked, horrified, dismayed and disgusted by all the nasty comments about the Princess of Wales today. A woman's hair is very personal to her. It's armour, defence, confidence and so much more. I cannot believe how evil and lacking in any kind of empathy are the comments, the majority made apparently by other women, attacking a vulnerable other young woman who has no choice, by dint of who she married and the role she took on, to bravely face the public. I'm sure she would rather be away from the public arena. She has brilliantly and quietly, unselfishly represented our country, the soft power we still have as a nation. Cancer affects individuals differently, but is life-changing for everyone. So for fuck's sake, leave her alone. Shame on you. Well, Mr. McKnight has made his feelings very clear, hasn't he, my dears? But I will give you my verdict now we've had the full show. And I'll begin by saying that Catherine's Catherine, isn't she? She's always divine. You know, you could truss her up in a rubbish bag and shave off her head and she would still look divine. So I understand that. But it's my job and my duty to nitpick. So if you don't like that, fuck off. Do you understand? I've seen footage of her in motion, and it looks better than a lot of the photographs. When the first photographs came through to me, a friend sent the photograph, actually, I must admit I was absolutely horrified when I saw this pile of tresses, Medusa-like, piled up on the head, voluminous, with a greenish sort of hue. I was horrified. It was very voluminous. It was like Pamela Anderson's Baywatch Days or Brigitte Bardot of the 1960s, which are both very enviable sex-kitten looks. Let's not get it twisted. A beautiful mane of hair, whichever way you look at it, but looked slightly absurd on a middle-aged woman. This was the quiz. There was a sense of absurdity about it, misplaced, out of context. However, it looks much better on video, I'm very pleased to say. When she's in motion and you see the treacly tint to the hue that has gone into this slowly urbanized blonding of the tresses. And it is still absolutely gorgeous, let's face it. But there is no question, darker brunette on her is far better. Now, we can't blame her, as I said last time. She is moving through the seasons. She's wondering, like any woman, or a few gentlemen, how to cope with that transition and how to style herself. And there is always a trouble when you have such dark hair as she has, when greys begin coming through, when the salt begins to overcome the pepper. And it becomes more noticeable, especially when she's under lens so very much, high definition lenses capturing her constantly. Any little centimetre of grey coming through is going to be more obvious, and the trouble with that is the maintenance. It requires constant dye jobs and root dyes and updating, and you become a slave to it. And also it can become rather harsh on a lady's complexion when you have very brunette hair and pale face. Although Catherine has a lot of warm tones to her complexion, actually, which is why it's difficult finding the right shades of blonde and lighter tones to add to her look. There is always a danger of it becoming very harsh with that contrast. Catherine is trying to find ways to soften that contrast, and I'm sure that she will get there. I think she is still finding her way. But I'm afraid if she wants to keep her hair in such long tresses, and it is very Rapunzel-like, first of all, I don't blame her. It is a beautiful crowning glory she has. People talk about wigs. I saw people accusing her of wearing a wig for these appearances. Now, I don't know if occasionally she might clip in a few extensions here and there, but my volition is that she does not, because she has no need for such things. She has fabulously thick hair as it is, natural, and she seems to have had rather an intense blow dry for this appearance, or what they call a broad blowout. You know, a blow dry can do wonders, and very voluminous. But if she wants to keep it long, what I would advise her to do, as I've been doing for quite some time actually, is to wear it up for daytime functions, now that she is progressing through to the late summer season. Keep it long if you like, but do a Princess Anne. Start wearing it up more, and then let loose in the evenings and shock us all with the glamour. But for day functions, we don't need it all trailing about with absurd bubbly Bardot Pamela Anderson curls. As gorgeous as it looks, that is how I feel about it. It's not really very royal, and moreover it actually becomes, as others have said, problematic with regards to aging as she approaches her 50s, because as gravity begins to pull one's face down, as comes to all of us who happen to be alive, as gravity pulls the face down, so does the long hair. It can magnify that effect, whereas if one has a shorter style, as a Diana did, or wears updos, it has a lifting enhancement to it. But suffice to say, there is no question that compared to just about anybody else on the entire globe, she still looks fantastic. She's blessed with luscious, abundant hair, and that hasn't changed. Personally, I happen to prefer the drama, especially with royalty, of straight-up brunette, or red, or blonde, or grey, or white, rather than what we have at the moment, which is perhaps aiming for treacle, but coming off slightly mousy. You know, it's rather uninspiring. I think that's the trouble. And I have to say, as much as it must be difficult to maintain the darker tone, when I think back to her summer at Wimbledon this year and some of the looks she gave us with that dark hair, she still looked absolutely splendid with it. So perhaps she's jumped the gun and gone softer and lighter a little earlier than she needed to, or perhaps she should simply see through her trademark brunette into her late summer season and continue it through the autumn. She has those warmer tones in her complexion. Perhaps she could, in fact, carry it off for a very long time. Do furnish me with your thoughts and your experience, but keep it civil. Fruity is fine, but civil and respectful. Or if you can't be respectful, at least make it camp and entertaining. If you're going to be a damn right bitch, that's fine. Bitchy is fine, but we just don't need downright hate, do we? That's not fun. And before anybody jumps in to come for me, I'm well aware that my own blonde isn't always what you call immaculate. I do my own blonding. Yeah, I decided some time ago I wasn't going to pay anybody 150 quid to touch up my roots here and there. So I get the supplies from Sally in a mixing bowl and touch it up myself. It's very hit and miss. I've had the green hues, the brassy hues, the ashy blues, the peroxide hues. I've made all the mistakes and still continue to. But I'm a bit rock and roll about it, my dear. Don't take it too seriously. I'm not the Princess of Wales, sadly. The King has been spending time in Birmingham, specifically at the Oratory of St. Philip Neri. This was a tour following the canonisation some time ago of Cardinal John Henry Newman, and the King was able to look through historic items in the library and view the Cardinal's personal items in his own room, which has remained untouched since his death in 1890. The curator of the Newman Museum showed him around, who I've got to tell you, because I looked at the footage, was rather enchanting. An elegantly dressed man, and he was exemplary, such a character, and I could see the King enjoying his company and his wisdom as he showed him through. He had such a graceful touch about him, and a way to converse and pitch interesting information without becoming tiresome or a bore, which is quite hard to do in places like museums. But the King was enchanted. I was rather enchanted by this chap who showed the King around. And in the library, yes, he was shown historic items such as the Polyglot Bible, which had a dedication to Charles's predecessor, King Charles II. That was most curious. And the King officially opened the New Midlands Metropolitan University Hospital, where he met medical professionals and volunteers, and he was able to view the hospital's 4,000 square metre winter garden, and he spoke at length with many patients, saying, "Bits don't work so well when you get past 70. It was actually very nice seeing him interacting with cancer patients and being able to share such compassion and knowledge of the journey that they go through. And Queen Camilla had a very busy week with lots of engagements, and as usual, she rode it out with great aplomb. She visited many of her long-standing patronages in Cornwall, and she wore polka dots for the occasion. This began at the headquarters of Shelterbox in Truro. It was the 25th anniversary of this international disaster relief charity, which specialises in emergency shelter for those uprooted from their homes by disasters, conflict, and the climate crisis. It has supported over 3 million people in 100 countries. Her Majesty was introduced to the charity 20 years ago on a visit to Pakistan, later becoming president and then patron. And then at the Cornwall Community Foundation, CCF, at Wave House Church in Newquay, there were happy, happy greetings from so many who were enchanted to be in the Queen's presence. And I've noticed that the Queen, when she is addressed and when she is greeting people, always asks, "How are you? How are you? How are you?" a million times over. And she doesn't do it by rote. She does it out of genuine curiosity. She tries to give every single person her undivided attention, for however brief the moment. How are you? How are you? How are you? Now, I will say, as much as I appreciate that, it's an attribute to her character, I would encourage her to go back to the traditional "how do you do?" instead of "how are you?" for various reasons. First of all, it can help discourage unwelcome responses. Some will take that cue to give you their life story, or be confuddled by the question itself. I am someone who hates being asked, in all earnestness, "How are you?" I've learnt to simply say, "Very well, thank you," but one wants sometimes to expostulate more wildly. "How do you do?" is more of a statement than a question. Do you understand? Which can help proceedings along. That is what I say when I meet, and how royalty would traditionally proceed. How do you do? How do you do? That is better. If someone asks me how I am, I will say very well, no matter what's going on. But if I'm not very well, and I want to cover up for that fact, I will simply say, "Splendid! Oh, I'm splendid! I'm marvellous! I'm wonderful!" in some sort of campy theatrical way when I'm actually feeling downright wretched. That's the English way. This place empowers grassroots organisations and it fosters local giving to build strong communities in Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. The charity aims to foster these communities and prevent hardships of inequalities, unaffordable housing and, you guessed it, climate change again. Finally, the Queen opened the new operations unit of Cornwall Air Ambulance Trust's headquarters and formally named the charity's new helicopter, the Duke of Cornwall, which is now William, isn't it? He is incumbent in that role now. Her Majesty has served as patron for 16 years, and the Trust provides critical care to seriously sick and injured people across the region, completing over 32,000 missions since their very own air ambulance became the very first to take to the skies of the kingdom back in 1987. She rocked up in this very silky number at the Art Play Pavilion and Sculpture Garden at Dulwich Picture Gallery, and she squeezed into a telephone box with children of the kingdom, which was jolly good fun, and she saw how green spaces have been transformed to create fun, art-based learning experiences for young children. Opened since 1811, the Picture Gallery was the world's first purpose-built public art gallery dedicated to sharing one of the greatest art collections in the world. And it was serious business for the Queen as Royal Colonel. Her Majesty visited the 4th Battalion of the Ranger Regiment at New Normandy Barracks in Aldershot, where she met members of the battalion and their families. The Queen's visit marked the launch of the Peregrine Fund, providing vital welfare support for regiment members and families. The Queen presented medals for service, and she received a commemorative brooch recognising her enduring support for the battalion. And so another week of royal life and royal death draws to a close. Thank you for joining me and for sharing your fruity thoughts. If you enjoyed the broadcast, consider sending a tip jar treat my way. If you did not enjoy the broadcast, that's tough titty, don't darken my doorstep again, and fuck you. See you next time, my darlings. Ta-ra and toodle pip.